everyone. Thank you for joining me in today's podcast on climate change, science writing, its similarities and differences with other forms of writing. I'm your host, Lian Singkulan, a science communicator affiliated with the University of the Philippines Open University. Now, before we begin, let me ask you, what was the last thing you read before attending this podcast? Let's hear from Alea Garcia. Alea.
Hi, Lian, and hello, everyone. I'm Aliyah, a senior journalist. The last thing I read was a draft of a news article about increasing oil and gas prices from one of our junior reporters.
Thank you, Alea. Now let's hear from Fritzy Flamenco. Fritzy, how are you?
Good morning, ladies. I'm Fritzy, a senior corporate communications professional. I believe the last thing I read was an internal memo about our Christmas charity event that's happening next month.
Thank you, Fritzy. And finally, let's hear from Miss Nicolette Legaspi. She's also here. Nicolette?
Hi everyone, I'm Nick, a freelance novelist, and the last thing I read was actually a manuscript I've been working on about a children's fantasy novel set in my hometown of Cebu.
Whoa, thank you, Nick, and to all you ladies. Now, I think it's safe to say that none of the things you last read had much to do with science, right?
Yeah.
That's all right. It's nothing to be ashamed of. As we endeavor to improve science communication to bring consequential scientific research and discoveries to public consciousness, it is crucial to be aware of the unfortunate lack of science tradition in our country. Before we take a look at how similar and different climate change scientific writing is from other forms of writing. And lucky for us this morning, we all come from different writing backgrounds. So I expect our discussion will be a particularly exciting exchange of ideas. Now, let's begin. Now, first, let us explore the various definitions of science writing. Of course, science writing is about reporting research findings for scientists, which requires a deep understanding of particular research study itself to capture its big picture. Scientific writing is not only writing about science, but it is also the technical writing that scientists do to communicate their works to others. So people are naturally born curious, and science is a field full of wonder, and knowledge about the natural world should be absolutely on par with knowledge about arts and humanities. So the challenges to communicate science to the general audience becomes increasingly difficult due to the digital communication landscape. Some of these challenges are informal ways to inform the public about research, study, or finding, such as through social media, blogging, or YouTube videos. These platforms tend to emphasize the uniqueness and importance of research findings, but do not highlight the uncertainties that are required in science communication. Compromises in the accuracy or importance of the work because jargons or highly specialized language are not used so as not to confuse a layperson. And dealing with audiences with rigid beliefs and insufficient background knowledge. Other challenges include lack of proper training in science communication, language and grammatical inaccuracies, inaccurate English terminologies, plagiarism, approach criticism, objectively, and even referencing. It is the science communicator's task to address these challenges and to develop solutions so as to bridge the gap between the scientists and the public. Climate change writing is a new genre of writing brought about by the need to convey real, unsettling, sad, and anger-inducing realities with little to no sense of hope. So writing may be an unusual way to respond to climate crisis, but writing has always been a tool to respond to any impending issue. And climate change is no different, ladies. So delivering hard-hitting science topics like climate change works if delivered via stories or if scientists can draw the connections between climate change and real-life events and experiences such as extreme weather conditions. Now let's move on to the similarities and differences of science writing with other forms of writing. The general news writing, the business or technical writing, the letter writing, and the creative writing. Before we dive deeper, let's ask Alea what her writing process is like as a senior journalist.
The first step is what we journalists call pre-writing, which includes research and investigating news materials. I personally prefer to conduct face-to-face field interviews because interviewees are our primary source of information. And I use key institutional publications, press releases, blotter reports, and spot reports as my secondary sources. Then I start the actual writing process where I draft and make revisions. Now that I am a senior journalist, I am more involved in the final stages, which are editing and proofreading, the drafts of our junior reporters.
Let's see if Fritzy and Mick also have their own unique writing processes. Fritzy.
Absolutely. As a senior corporate communications professional, I work on different communication requirements, but in general, I also start with pre-writing, which includes identifying the audience and objectives, researching, brainstorming, organizing, and outlining the key points, and even devising a schedule or budget if needed. My two main sources of information are internal sources or data that are collected for the sole use of the company, as well as external sources, which are documentations available to the public. The second step, I would say, is the actual writing process. And like Alea, I have a team of junior writers who work on the initial drafts. The final stages are revising, editing, and proofreading, and making sure they are ready for various stakeholders' review.
Wow, that's good, Fritzy. And now let's hear it from our freelance novelist, Nick.
Thanks, Leanne. The creative writing process is somewhat more flexible than Alea's and Fritzy's. I have novelist friends who can finish a story in one sitting. They just sit there and practically conjure a story out of thin air. But that's not me. I tend to be more traditional in my approach. My pre-writing may or may not involve research at all. It has a lot more to do with imaginative thinking and planning the characters, settings, genre, and tone of voice. Then I work with my editor on revising and proofreading the manuscript to prepare it for publication.
Now, when it comes to climate change science writing, one of my science communicator colleagues, Job Manahan, used to say that the first thing he thinks about is what's happening on the ground.
What I really love about science reporting is it's very different in different how do you call this, topics, because aside from the context that you also need to interview important voices. So these are the voices of the stakeholders, experts, as well as those people who are really affected by climate change.
Now to recap, here is a summary of the similarities and differences between science writing and other styles of writing which we have discussed so far. Science writing connects the message of science to the public which needs them. It is a bridge which allows the scientists and the non-scientists or general public to cross over and meet via the science writing material. Science writing takes a page from scientific, business or technical writing, and news, creative and popular writing. While it also adopts a more digestible format like news writing and some liberties of creative writing, when it comes to handling the message, it remains uncompromising in its use of validated scientific data. And we have now reached the end of the podcast. Once again, thank you for joining my podcast ladies on climate change science writing, its similarities and differences with other forms of writing. We wish you all a great day ahead.